Hey there, my friends, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to share with you an absolutely incredible story of survival that will leave you breathless. This is the story of Petty Officer First Class Marcus Dalton, a Navy SEAL who faced one of the most terrifying ordeals any warrior could imagine. 16 hours lost in the middle of the Indian Ocean, surrounded by sharks, with nothing but his training and an unbreakable will to survive. This is a story of courage, brotherhood, and the raw power of the human spirit when pushed to its absolute limits. So grab a seat, because what you're about to hear will stay with you long after this video ends. Important note, this is a dramatized fictional narrative created for educational purposes. Although this is fiction, incidents like this were frequent during Special Operations Maritime missions, and the objective is to reflect on the sacrifices and challenges faced by these elite warriors through narrative storytelling. Now let me take you to March 2009 in the waters of the Indian Ocean. The night was moonless and the Indian Ocean stretched endlessly in every direction like a vast black void. Petty Officer First Class Marcus Dalton, 29 years old, had completed hundreds of maritime operations during his 7 years with SEAL Team 5, but nothing had prepared him for what was about to happen on the night of March 17, 2009. The mission brief had been straightforward. A covert insertion 12 nautical miles off the coast of Somalia to gather intelligence on pirate operations threatening commercial shipping lanes. Dalton's 6-man squad had fast-roped from a hovering MH-60 Black Hawk helicopter onto 2 rigid-hull inflatable boats, RHIBs at 0200 hours. The exfiltration was scheduled for 0600, giving them 4 hours to complete reconnaissance and return to the designated pickup coordinates. Everything went according to plan, until it didn't. At 0547 hours, as the squad motored through choppy waters toward the extraction point, Dalton was positioned at the stern of the lead RHIB, maintaining rear security. The sea was rougher than anticipated, with waves cresting at 4 to 5 feet. Lieutenant Commander Hayes, the team leader, was coordinating with the Black Hawk pilots over the encrypted radio when it happened. A rogue wave, massive and utterly unexpected, slammed into the port side of the RHIB with the force of a freight train. Dalton felt the world tilt violently. His hands grasped for the safety line, but the nylon rope slipped through his gloved fingers like water. The next moment he was airborne. His body hurled into the darkness. He hit the water hard, the impact knocking the air from his lungs despite his tactical vest. The ocean swallowed him whole. When he surfaced, gasping and disoriented, the RHIBs were already distant shapes in the pre-dawn darkness. He could hear the outboard motors growing fainter. Dalton immediately activated his IR strobe on his vest and began waving his arms, shouting into the wind, "Man overboard! Man overboard!" But the squad was too far. The roar of the engines drowned everything. Within 30 seconds, the boats disappeared completely into the darkness, and Marcus Dalton found himself alone in the middle of the Indian Ocean. The first rule of SEAL training echoed in his mind. Don't panic. Assess. Adapt. Overcome. Dalton forced himself to breathe steadily, treading water as he took inventory. His tactical vest kept him afloat. He had his sidearm, a Sig Sauer P226, though it would be useless in the water. His radio was waterproof and he immediately keyed the mic. Bravo 5 to Bravo Actual, do you copy? Man overboard. Man overboard. This is Bravo 5. Static. The radio was functioning, but he was outside transmission range. The squad would realize he was missing within minutes, but in these waters, in this darkness, finding one man would be nearly impossible until daylight. He checked his watch, 0549 hours. Sunrise would come around 0615. The extraction Black Hawk would arrive at the rendezvous point at 0600. When the squad realized he was gone, they would immediately initiate search and rescue protocols. He just needed to survive until they found him. Stay calm. Conserve energy. Stay afloat. As the first gray light of dawn began to paint the eastern horizon, Dalton scanned the endless expanse of water around him. Nothing. No land, no boats. Just rolling waves and the growing realization of how utterly alone he was. That's when he saw the first fin. It cut through the water about 50 yards to his left, a dark triangle moving with deliberate purpose. then another 30 yards to his right. Dalton's heart hammered in his chest, but his SEAL training took over. Sharks were attracted to erratic movement and panic. He forced himself to remain still, treading water with slow, controlled movements. The fins circled, waiting, watching. "Come on, Hayes," Dalton whispered to himself. "Come find me." The sun rose fully at 06:30, transforming the ocean into a glittering expanse that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. But now, the light revealed something terrifying. Dalton could see the sharks clearly now, at least 5 of them, their sleek grey bodies gliding beneath the surface. Tiger sharks, he realized, aggressive, territorial, hungry. One of them swam closer, its dead black eyes fixed on him. Dalton remembered the training. Make yourself look big, don't act like prey. He spread his arms and legs, making himself as large as possible in the water. The shark circled once more, then retreated. Hours crawled by. The morning sun grew brutal, beating down on his head. Dalton's lips began to crack from the salt and sun exposure. His legs ached from treading water. Dehydration was setting in. Ironic, being surrounded by water but unable to drink a drop. At 0900 hours, he heard it, the distant thump of helicopter rotors. His heart surged with hope. Dalton pulled the signal flare from his vest, waterproof and designed for exactly this situation. He fired it into the sky, the bright orange smoke billowing upward. The helicopter appeared on the horizon, but it was moving in the wrong direction, searching a grid pattern miles to the north. They were searching the wrong coordinates. The current must have dragged him farther than anyone anticipated. "No, no, no!" Dalton shouted, firing a second flare. But the Black Hawk continued its pattern and eventually disappeared from view. The despair hit him harder than the wave that had thrown him overboard. They were looking, but they were looking in the wrong place. By noon, Dalton was struggling. The sun had turned his exposed skin raw. His tongue felt swollen in his mouth. The sharks had grown bolder, one brushing against his leg, a terrifying reminder that they were still there, still circling. He kicked hard, and the shark retreated, but he knew his strength was fading. "Not like this," he said aloud, his voice hoarse. "Not like this." He thought about his wife, Sarah, back in Virginia Beach. She was 7 months pregnant with their first child, a daughter they'd already named Emma. He thought about his squad, his brothers, Chief Ramirez, who had saved his life in Ramadi, Lieutenant Hayes, who trusted him with the toughest assignments. He couldn't let them down. He couldn't let his daughter grow up without knowing her father. The afternoon dragged into a hellish blur. Dalton drifted in and out of coherent thought, his body approaching the limits of human endurance. The sharks grew more aggressive. One struck his vest, testing. Dalton punched it hard in the snout, a desperate, instinctive reaction. The shark retreated, but he knew his luck was running out. At 1500 hours, hypothermia began to set in despite the warm surface water. His core temperature was dropping from exhaustion and dehydration. His vision blurred. He found himself talking to his father, who had been a Marine in Vietnam and had died when Marcus was 12. "I tried, Dad," he whispered. "I really tried." Then, cutting through his delirium, he heard it again. Rotors. This time the sound was closer, much closer. Dalton's hands trembled as he reached for his last flare. His fingers could barely grip it. He pulled the trigger, and orange smoke erupted into the sky. The MH-60 Black Hawk banked hard, turning directly toward him. Relief flooded through Dalton's body so intensely he nearly lost consciousness. The helicopter descended, and he could see the rescue swimmer preparing to jump. Within minutes, the swimmer, a young kid Dalton didn't recognize, was in the water beside him. "Petty Officer Dalton?" the swimmer shouted over the rotor wash. "That's me," Dalton croaked, his voice barely functional. "We've got you, sir. You're going home." As they hoisted him into the helicopter, Dalton looked down at the water below. The sharks were still there, circling the spot where he'd been moments before. He'd been in the water for exactly 16 hours and 12 minutes. Inside the helicopter, Chief Ramirez grabbed his shoulders, tears streaming down the veteran SEAL's face. "We thought we lost you, brother," Ramirez said. "Not today, Chief," Dalton managed to smile. "Not today." Lieutenant Commander Hayes handed him a bottle of water. "You just set a new record, Dalton. Longest open water survival in SEAL team history." Dalton drank slowly, the fresh water like heaven on his destroyed throat. "It was the sharks, sir. They kept me motivated." The entire squad laughed, that dark military humor that comes from surviving the unsurvivable. Back at the forward operating base, medics treated Dalton for severe dehydration, second-degree sunburn, and mild hypothermia. He spent 3 days in the hospital before being cleared to return to duty. His commander recommended him for a Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal for his composure and survival skills under extreme circumstances. But the real recognition came from his squad. That night, after he was released from medical, they gathered in the team room. Chief Ramirez stood and raised a beer. To Marcus Dalton, the toughest son of a bitch in the teams, 16 hours in the Indian Ocean with tiger sharks, and he came back ready to fight. That's a SEAL, gentlemen. The room erupted in cheers. 3 months later, back in Virginia Beach, Dalton stood in the delivery room holding his newborn daughter Emma for the first time. Sarah looked up at him, exhausted but radiant. "You okay?" she asked. Dalton kissed his daughter's forehead, thinking about those 16 hours in the ocean, about how close he'd come to never experiencing this moment. "I'm perfect," he said. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Years later, when Emma was old enough to understand, Marcus Dalton would tell her about that night in the Indian Ocean. He would tell her about the sharks, about the fear, about the moment he almost gave up. But more importantly, he would tell her about the brothers who never stopped searching, about the training that saved his life, and about the power of refusing to surrender, even when every odd is stacked against you. Because that's what SEALs do. They endure, they adapt, they overcome, and they never, ever leave a man behind. My friends, I want to take a moment to talk about what we just experienced together. This story, while dramatized and fictional, is deeply rooted in the real challenges that Navy SEALs and Special Operations Forces face during maritime operations. These are some of the most dangerous missions conducted by our military, where warriors operate in hostile environments with minimal support and maximum risk. The reality of special operations in places like the Indian Ocean, the Persian Gulf, and waters near conflict zones is that the margin for error is razor thin. Equipment fails, weather changes, accidents happen. And when they do, these warriors rely on their training, their mental toughness, and their unbreakable bond with their teammates to survive. While Marcus Dalton is a fictional character, his story represents countless real incidents where special operators have faced survival situations that test the absolute limits of human endurance. From Vietnam-era SEALs evading capture in enemy waters to modern operators conducting counter-piracy missions off Somalia, the ocean has always been both a strategic asset and a deadly adversary. The importance of this narrative is to honor the sacrifice and courage of these elite warriors who volunteer for the most dangerous missions our nation asks of them. They train for years to be ready for moments like this, moments where survival depends entirely on mental strength, physical conditioning, and the refusal to give up. This is fiction, yes, but it's fiction based on the very real experiences of warriors who have served in these capacities. Stories like this help us understand the extraordinary commitment and bravery required to serve in Special Operations Forces. So I want to thank you for watching this story and for taking a moment to reflect on the men and women who serve in these roles. They deserve our respect, our support, and our gratitude. Now, I want to hear from you. What did you think of Marcus's story? Could you imagine being in his situation, alone in the ocean for 16 hours? Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. And hey, tell me, what city or state are you watching from right now? I love hearing from all of you across the country and around the world. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more incredible military stories, and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Share this video with someone who loves stories of courage and survival. Thank you so much for being here, for supporting this channel, and for honoring these stories with your time and attention. I'm sending you all a big hug and my deepest gratitude. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and never forget the warriors who protect our freedom. Much love from here. Take care. From